Welcome to LivAnimated.com. Let's learn something new. Today we're going to be answering another question that was sent my way. And the question is, what is the work schedule like and how best to manage it? Now, when you talk about your work schedule, you have choices. A lot of the choices you can make are 9 to 5, 10 to 6 that the company may offer to you. But a lot of times people are early birds or night owls. Early birds will want to come in early, 6, 7, 8, and start their 8 hours and then end earlier in the day for whatever reasons. And that's fine. Just like it's okay for if people want to work later in the day, normally they'll start like 10, 11, but this probably needs to be talked to with the studio heads to see like, hey, is this okay? But just know that on the back end, you're going to be getting that time made up and I'm still going to be working my 8 hours. So those are some of the choices that you have. A person like myself, my work ethic is like crazy. So I like to be a night owl sometimes or be an early bird. And a lot of that will be attributed to what am I working on, the involvement I have in working in it, and how many bottlenecks I usually tend to have to deal with. When it's almost none and it's really dependent on myself to get the work done, a lot of times from learning the tools and the processes, I love to get work done and in and see it and be able to go over it with other team members as soon as possible. And so there's a lot of joy I get from that immediate response of working and getting that instant gratification of seeing my work. A lot of times companies will look down upon this because they'll look at it as, oh, is Edward crunching? A lot of times that just simply is not the case. I love what I do for my career and I love what I do as a hobby as well. And so I like to take those liberties of choosing to work on work stuff after hours. And I will sacrifice not working on like a personal project in its place. So a lot of times what this does is benefit the company. They get more out of me. And a lot of that comes from stemming in me of like, I understand when it comes to like music, movies, games, the time it takes to get something and truly find something where you get that aha moment or feeling that flow of what you're working on. You, as an artist, don't have the ability to dictate when that happens. So a lot of times, I like to just continue to ride the wave. You know, you'll get in those moments where you're like, oh, it's 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 1, 1 to 2. You look down and you go, oh my God, it's 2 o'clock. You know, I skipped through lunch. I didn't, I was riding that wave. Maybe you get a bite to eat, you jump back into it. Or maybe you don't get a bite to eat and you keep working and you go 2 to 5, 5 to 7. And you're like, oh my goodness, I got a lot done. I felt in the zone. I think I'm done for the day. I feel like I got what I wanted done in this day. But now if you go a little bit further than that, let's just say you're working into the night, your family's gone to bed, you're working on something that you're really having fun working on, and you want to keep working on it. A lot of times, this is not a problem that I've encountered, but sometimes people in management will look at it as like, why is Edward crunching? He's sending mixed signals to the team of they need to be crunching, or people feeling like, I don't feel like I'm getting my work done because Edward's working so hard. This blows my mind a little bit. It makes me feel like I don't understand how a person's joy and involvement on what they're working on can make someone feel like they're being inadequate or feeling like they aren't working as much. It's all about perception. You don't have control over these things. But a lot of times the company wants to kind of try to control those things and saying, hey, don't work so hard. Or if you're going to work hard, don't tell anyone about it, which is pretty crazy, So those are some of the choices that you have, and you have to deal with the repercussions of those choices. But a lot of times, ultimately you can do what you want. It's just, you have to just deal with what happens in those circumstances. So, I know a lot of times when I start feeling like, okay, you're telling me not to work, you're telling me not to do this, I don't think a lot of people realize what actually can get done and what gets done in those, hours of the night that you're up working and, this joy and passion that you're feeling and you want to just, help as much as you can. When you look at the music industry, you look at movies, a lot of times those things aren't 9 to 5 jobs because they can't be. When you get those gleaming moments of like clarity, whether you're trying to figure out who should be on the hook or they dial in their performance and you're like, oh my God, this is great. That's why you see musical artists all the time in the studio as much as they can be, because those opportunities will come and go. You know, those vibes and those feelings will come and go. So you need to take advantage of them. Now, this doesn't mean or dictate that I'm saying like everyone needs to work like this. Of course not. But when you have individuals, because I know there's more people than myself that work like this, you should look at it as an individual standpoint and go, this person likes to work this way. How do I ensure that they are not getting burnt out, or that they, they're doing this for passion and they know that they don't have to do it? That's a different side of taking it than just saying, hey, don't work. Don't do this. When your time is over, just clock out, do something else, It's a little disheartening. It's a little like, okay, you're not going to get the best and the most out of that person because you're killing that joy where they're going to work on something else in their free time. I used to work on things on the weekends, like animation projects a few years ago. And they were just personal side projects. A lot of times what would happen is I would show those projects because we had like this show and tell at work, and they wanted people to really share what they're working on and talk about what they're working on the weekend for their personal projects. And I remember I did some dialogue pieces. I showed them off at work, and people were like, "Oh my God, you did this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did this one over this past weekend. I did this one this weekend." And I remember my manager, my boss at the time, was telling me, "Hey, Edward, why don't you focus on some of this during your work? Why don't you put this effort into your work to make the work look better that we're working on our project?" And I thought, I could do that. But then I was like, I'm just doing this for practice because this is the things I'm not able to work on at work. And they were like, And so what happened from that is, lo and behold, I started getting tasked with things that reflected what I did in my free time. And it was amazing. I mean, granted, I was working crazy hours during this time because with this being my career and my hobby, and now I'm being assigned things, you want to make sure that what the next point I want to bring up is that you're not being taken advantage of. You want to make sure that what you're working on is something that you are trying to do as a benefit for the team out of fun. You don't want to be tasked with certain things to be worked on after hours. You don't want to be tasked with having your schedule being bloated because they're like, oh, well, he's going to work 12 to 16 hours anyway. How about we assign him these things and then it's all going to get done? That's poor planning, that's poor management and everything. So those are some of the things you need to keep in mind and watch out for. Now, granted, when I did this, I was over the moon with it. I was excited to work on what it was, and it was making me better at what I was doing. So it was a win-win in that instance. But you really want to keep in mind when it comes to planning, when it comes to making sure everything is going as planned with the producers and with the project, that you're not being overtasked. You want to make sure that your schedule is manageable just like everyone else's schedule. A lot of times people will confuse this for the passion that you have, and they will try to take advantage of you and your work. I know a lot of times in my career, a lot of people would say, Edward, you're working too fast, you're working too hard, don't do this. They're gonna want more from you. They're gonna assume that you're gonna do more work, when this is something you did in your free time. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But like I said, as a professional, I tend to keep these things in check pretty well. But I do not like it when, someone is like, hey, just don't do any more work. As a business, you would think a person would, look at the individual and go, what is making this person do this? What is the motivation for this person to do this? And I think that is more important than just saying, no, don't do it. So those are some of the things that you have to deal with when it comes to managing your time, but a lot of it is in your control and what you want to do. When it comes to working with producers, some things to keep in mind is, make sure that the time estimates are as accurate as possible. Make sure that communication is open and clear and what the expectations are for the schedule or for your milestone or what have you. And then try to get people to understand through staggered development what can be accomplished to lessen the bottlenecks and lessen, how the workflow will go. Those are some of the things to keep in mind when talking about your schedule and talking about how best to manage it. I hope you learned something new. Thank you very much, and see you again next time.